Alright guys, here to talk about the movie You Might Be the Killer.
I kind of like this movie.
I like this a lot because it's not your common movie. It really isn't. It's like, I think it was guys, it's like a horror comedy, but really there's not much horror there at all. It's mostly a comedy.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't know how this
interesting like it takes the take on a movie is super not what you're used to.
And we'll get into like details.
Yeah, there'll be spoilers later. Right now, just a blanket review.
I would definitely say watch it. I don't think it's great or like outstanding, but I think it's good. It's I don't want to even say anything because that could like I think going into it, because I didn't even watch a trailer. I knew nothing about it, and I'm like, well, that title's something, right? But I just went into it sort of nothing. I think that's how people should kind of go into it. It's good. It's got some Allison Hannigan.
Yes.
It's got Willow in it.
Yeah, Willow of Buffy fame. And it's band camp fame.
I don't know what else to say without spoiling it because everything about it is kind of a spoiler.
Yes.
And it's not like this is gonna ruin everything or whatever.
No, but worth watching to find out what it is. Yes, a couple of really interesting things. The filming techniques were good. Good deaths and good like stuff. Yeah,
too,
some of those deaths were very good and like happened at points where you're like, oh, we're doing a great death now, awesome.
Yeah, and like unexpectedly so, because you hear horror comedy, and once you kind of catch on to the premise, you're like, oh, I see what's gonna happen here. But like visual stuff that they did, great like cell phone stuff, which is like totally like there's no reason for that to be so good. I was really like, oh, I think this is good.
Now, if you like the idea of a comedy horror, light on the comedy or light on the horror, kind of just a movie. It's a weird sell for it because it's not super a comedy, it's not super a horror. It rides this line.
Would you say that's in the vein of Scream, something like that?
I'd say.
Would it be in that
section? In that it's almost a parody of horror, but it is not a parody. Yes. It is completely taking itself seriously. It's not a joke. It's not spoofing on the genre, but it does.
Yeah, I guess we could say
take the genre seriously. If you like Allison Hannigan, if you like that whole thing sounds like a good movie, go check this out. If you haven't seen it already, we're about to spoil it. If you have seen it, stay tuned.
If you need a place to rent content, you better listen. We're Cannibal Video and we eat the competition.
I've said too much already with the Scream comment. But yeah, it's a horror movie that knows that horror movies exist, which is very, like, I think, treacherous territory to walk in. I think it does a good job of doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, like, when I saw this had,
Yeah, what did you know? Because I never know anything going in.
I saw the trailer for this. This got recommended to me on Amazon, I think. I think it was like, it popped up in one of my, like, if you like this movie, you might like this movie type of thing. And I was like, all right, let me peruse. And I checked out the trailer. And I was like, oh, this movie looks pretty good. Yeah. The trailer, I don't think did it justice.
I was just going to say, like, what does the trailer give away?
It was not painted that, like, he definitely was the killer. Okay. It was like, oh, maybe, like, as the title implies, you might be the killer. But really, it's never a question once the movie kind of starts if he's the killer. It's kind of like, you're the killer.
So that's the whole thing. Like, it's called that. And I was like, maybe that's the joke, because you wouldn't call it that and then have him be the killer. And then 3 minutes in, I'm like, okay, well, he's the killer, though. Am I going to have to wait like 45 minutes of her being like, you might be the killer?
I hate to ask you this, but are you sure you're not the killer?
And then winking at the camera, like, this is going to be awful. But no, they get on with that really quickly. They kind of dispatch with that.
He's the killer, but he's not really the killer. He's possessed by a mask.
It's a haunted mask. Look what they did to my boy.
There's a beautiful effect, like when the mask is not on him, like beckoning his face to it. Like, I really like that effect.
Yeah.
With one of the deaths, you started out, there's like some good deaths. When he cleaves that guy in half, I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, not since, like, what was that, Wrong Turn 2 or something, that there's been a good cut in half like that. Some fun stuff. But, like, working off the tropes of horror movies, you had Allison Hannigan for, like, I guess a day in one location.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, really?
Yes. And that, like, is probably a real location. I'm thinking.
It's like a nerd. She works at, like, the nerd store. It's some stupid thing. I know the name.
It's like a game. Was it Saturn?
It's like comics.
Rings of Saturn?
I know. I just said I know where it is. I'm trying to breeze through that part.
I was making sure I knew.
like it's like comics and games and shit, like whatever. It's like D&D over there, and they're like, oh, I want to buy a power ring at some and then he calls her like, you're the expert, and she's like, shouldn't you call the cops? And he's like, well, yeah, I called the cops, I left a message, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, that
like,
that
it's
I loved.
very like, okay,
yeah, you're like, why is he calling his friend?
I called the sheriff. I left a voicemail.
Wait, a voicemail?
Yeah.
Oh, he did call the cops, right? Okay.
No, and like they kind of do a really good job at covering all that. That's what I meant by Scream, is like we know, and like in like an updated way for like the current time. They're not like, there's 2 rules and like dude.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
It's not doing that. It's like her being like, maybe it's one of these. Could it be this? Could it be that? Did you do this? Did you do like she's like questioning all these things.
Yeah.
She's like, well, there is like a mask, like not Seth Green and like not Stoner from Cabin in the Woods guy. That guy is like the killer guy. But I love the whole thing. It was like, no, I have a baseball bat. Oh!
Are you holding a weapon of any kind? Probably a sharp one?
No. I mean, just this baseball bat. Wait.
Yes.
All that stuff where you're like, okay, this is dope. You're like not a reliable, witness to the events and all that stuff.
No, there's a lot of fun things. Yeah, just like that. And you called out the cell phone stuff. I love whenever there's interesting things like that.
It's like tracked to his
And
hand.
yes, yeah, exactly. The tracking on that.
I'm like, oh.
This is kind of fun.
We've kind of watched how cell phones in movies have evolved over time, and like a lot of people just do the close-up and it just says phone on top and there's nothing, and you're like, okay. And some people just ignore it and they go like this and they just talk or whatever, right? But then like this felt like they were using it the way that people really use a phone, and it was communicated in like a visually interesting way where it wasn't like, it's not cool to watch people talk on the phone, but it was like, oh.
Did you see Yoga Hosers?
No.
There's a similar
They did a thing?
cool text thing like that in that
I think
movie.
cool text things are like the new thing.
Yeah.
Between.
That's yeah.
Had the
Between had
coolest
good
text
texting.
thing. The only good thing about Between. Arguably.
R.I.P. There's a new Between, in quotes. There's a
No!
show called The Society on Netflix.
Oh!
That reminds me a lot of Between.
Wait, is that the one I'm thinking of? The Order. Never mind.
No, The Order was not good.
I didn't watch
that
The
too.
Order because I thought it wasn't good. But I was like, we should watch that. This is gonna be horrible.
But back to the movie we're talking about here.
Yeah, so like, Allison Hannigan's name is Chuck, and one of my notes, so like 3 minutes in, I'm like, oh, this guy is the killer, I guess. And then, like I just said, I'm going to be bored. For 5 minutes in, I'm like, is Chuck, like, in on it? Was she like, it's all going according to plan? Like, I'm like, uh-oh, like, what's happening here? And then 20 minutes in, it's, like, completely clear. And there's, like, rules of thumb or, like, guide rules to, like, screenplay writing and all that stuff. And, like, I think they say 10 minutes in, but, like, 20 minutes is good enough for me. Where it's, like, 20 minutes in, we know he's the killer. We know that the people are actually just trying to kill him.
That was
right?
what was a cool twist
this whole
on it.
thing. He's like,
when we first see him,
Yeah.
he's in a cabin running from the killer. But he's running from his victims who are
running
trying to
from
fight back.
the counselors.
They're trying to burn him alive.
Yes, it's amazing.
That's super good.
Who's still alive? He's like, I don't know. Whoever set the fire earlier, and she's like, what? It's like, nah. Like it's got a great tone with that and all that stuff.
The only thing I
love
really
it.
wasn't a fan of was his weapon. That
Weird,
super
yeah.
comical like knife
But now I have a really weird knife.
with like a jawbone.
It's got a real
and teeth or
ceremonial
something,
like vibe to it. It's got teeth or something. Like I don't know.
like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff screams fake to me.
Alligator jawbone
Yeah.
hilt or whatever. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need your cosplay bullshit.
Well, I didn't hate it because I thought it like went with the mask, and that explained why this wiry 140-pound guy was able to like cut people in half or whatever. And I'm like, fine, it's just part of the thing.
There's a part where he cuts
Whatever.
the athletic dude's arms off mid-swing with a bat. And it just falls to the ground. You're like, oh.
It goes, yeah. There's a lot of that where it's like,
of fun
like a
moves.
hot knife through butter.
Yeah, more or less.
And I love that when the mask takes control, he's kind of like stupider.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't sure. He was like, oh, keys. That's right. And it took him a while to be like, wait, do the thing where I'm like, okay, cool. Because it's not him, right? It's like he's possessed by this
Yeah,
evil.
it's like what, an 1800s German man or something.
There's a whole, and like so this reminded me like less than Scream, more like Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah,
where
that's not too dissimilar.
Like it both is about that type of movie while still being that type of movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So they have the whole scene where they tell the scary stories around the campfire, but it's just a trick. But that's really the story, right?
Yeah,
they
he's
do
telling
all
the
that
story
stuff. Yeah.
that is affecting these camp counselors.
Exactly, which I
The
was
death
like,
count
hell yeah.
thing I liked and confused
Yes.
me at a time because, like, so it'll say how many campers or counselors are alive, and when it first starts, you see him kill 2 people, but it says 3, and I'm like, what the hell's that? Because it's counting the person you haven't seen yet, and then it tracks back, and you see that one. I liked how it was in real time, moving backward and forward.
And when she comes back and you find out what's her name is not dead,
Yeah.
it like crosses out the 11 and puts 10. And then when he kills her, it crosses out 10 and puts 11.
Yeah.
That's one of my button notes. Is like keeping track of like the death toll in in that way. It's a great because like the movie starts out right in the middle of all the shit, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on. The main character doesn't know what's going on. He calls someone else to try to figure out what's going on, like with her help, and we all find out together, which involves a bunch of flashbacks.
Yeah, and Steve's really good with kids.
And those kayaks.
But these are in fact what? Great, that's right. I'm glad you guys knew that.
And disjointed things and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So you needed that like popping thing to like tie it
Definitely.
together and ground yourself. Where am I now? Oh, 6 dead. Great. Got it. Okay. And all that stuff.
Yeah, you got flashbacks to the summer before. You find the relationship between our main
God.
character and one of the counselors, and how that's gone away, and he's still clutching to it, and
just
she's
a
like,
fling.
get over it.
Oh no, you know this is just a summer fling for me.
When they're digging a pit with spikes as a defensive maneuver, I'm like, that's a weird maneuver.
Uh-huh.
Like, is that what we're doing now? We're digging large pits?
Apparently. And he says, wow, he did that so fast. And she's like, yeah, like Habitat for Humanity, or she's like some dumb thing. Like, what?
Holy shit, Jamie. Did you just do that? Good job. You guys dig a lot of holes?
It's not quite the arts and crafts project I was hoping for, but we're getting through this.
We get to the end. I think it's meant to be funny how drawn out it is, but I thought it was still like too drawn out.
Yeah?
With her like rummaging around and putting on the mask and him not looking and being like, are you done yet?
You just let me know when you're done. Just tap me on the shoulder, or just whistle or something so I don't risk looking at it, okay?
And all that stuff. It just like kept going, and I'm like, it didn't. Maybe if it had kept going for longer, I would have started laughing or something. But I was just like, oh no. So I
Yeah.
was like, yay! And then
What
it's like,
brought
ugh.
me back was the phone call at the very end.
Rings of Saturn, this is Chuck.
Chuck!
After the lightning storm and him coming back to life, I was like,
Well,
that was good.
no. So like that's fine. I just mean up until the point where she kills him and all that stuff. Because the final girl, right? He's like, listen, we don't have to do this. It's the mask, but I shouldn't touch it. Like you should put it away.
It's okay. Nothing's gonna happen. We can end this right now. We can both walk out of here together. We just need to put this in the ground.
So like the girl who was supposed to save everybody and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I loved the two girls fighting, by the way.
Yeah.
And she's like challenging her. Are you even that pure? Like maybe I should be the one. This is ridiculous.
And then all her questions
Yeah.
get answered with, okay, you are that pure.
Okay, crap. What do I do now?
And it's down to me and you, so are you a virgin? Yes!
Are you happy now?
Nope.
I thought that when, and I forget all their names because I didn't write down
When she
names
killed
or
her,
whatever.
when she wouldn't be pure anymore?
That's what I thought was going to be the thing, and I'm not sure if that was meant to be the implication because she's then tempted by the mask. Whole thing, right?
I don't know.
Does that mean Chuck was right? And how to me and you?
I kind of like the idea of like the horror tropes thing butting up against like reality or whatever, right? One of
Sure.
those deals. So I'm like, something about that is interesting. Where like, if you know what the rules are of what you're in, And even Alice Hannigan says, like, no, you can't just do that. You have to go somewhere else. Like, this isn't going to work. Like,
yeah.
this is not the right way to make it happen.
Go to the ceremonial zone or whatever.
Yeah, like, there's some way it has to be. If you know that, similar to Cabin, in the Woods, you can, like, subvert it and be like, well, wait, we're just going to leave then. Where? And, like, it, like, screws up the whole formula. So...
Yeah.
If she had just reacted naturally and never talked to her, it might have turned out where she just ended up killing him and it was all fine. By like outsmarting him and going down to the docks and tricking him in a canoe or whatever, right? It would have been like, okay, cool. But because she had that knowledge, and more importantly, the obnoxious girl had the knowledge, they had a conflict, and I thought that like screwed up the whole thing. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, or if she would have stayed laying next to those spikes for another day, she could have just walked home.
And just been like, woo, deuces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, too, they're like, we can't just walk out of here. This is a swamp full of alligators. This is where you have a camp?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
Aren't the kids just swimming all the time and doing things?
Yeah, there's alligators. And that's what... Like later when you find out what the whole thing is, I'm like, wait, but he wasn't doing the stuff with the phones or like them as him. He was doing it as Maskhead. So like, how did Maskhead like make him tell them not to leave? Because did he know in the back of his mind, don't leave? I need to like
that was
murder
just
you
him
all.
being him,
right? And it's like that's weird. Like okay, coincidence sort of thing worked out good for the evil being, I guess.
That whole phone thing, like you always need a reason there not to be cell phones because they ruin everything.
King! So glad to have you back.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to be back.
Here you go.
One thing, it's not a big deal, but they're canoes, so don't even worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But honestly, in this scenario, cell phones didn't even help because he did call the police and they didn't come.
Yeah.
So maybe they would have been okay.
Right.
I guess they all could have called. What I don't get is why didn't he call Chuck? Call the police. Have them come to this place.
Call the city police.
Yeah.
No, I know. If we go all the way down, the whole everything always falls apart.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
You have to remove cell phones entirely for any plot generally to work.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
And this relies on a cell phone for their communication.
So they couldn't get rid of it.
So you get this whole thing. That was why, not exactly that, but stuff like that is why I thought she had something to do with it. Because she's known him this whole time, and then you find out this is his family's camp with this ancient evil, and she loves horror stuff. So I thought like her and maybe one of those girls set up a thing or something. I was like, something's happening here, and it turned out to be...
It would have made sense.
Turned out to be nothing, basically.
There's definitely was room for improvement across the board, but I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good hour and a half of just like, turn the brain off.
No, it's like a super fun movie, and the effects are good, and like I really enjoyed the experience. To your point, it ends with the final girl with the mask walking off into a beautiful sunrise as like the dawn breaks over the camp.
And there could easily be another one.
And then 2 years later, and then I love the counselor count pops up again, but it's undead counselors, 1, and the music kicks in. Alice Hannigan's like, oh dear, and it's just happening.
I would actually like to see a movie where it's him now with potential powers from the lightning and coming back to life, like a Jason Voorhees type of thing, to have to stop the other kid, the
who's
killer.
Got the mask and is off doing something, and she's fully embraced it because he knows what it is and he's been fighting it, but she's been like, why was I pure my whole life? It was all for a waste. I almost got slaughtered. Now I have power. Right? You have a whole narrative just ready to go. They should totally do that. I'll still have my fingers crossed that something else will happen. But no, I liked it. I think you liked it too.
Yeah, I did.
Being responsible for an entire summer camp, what could possibly go wrong?
All right, guys, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you thought about it. Don't die in a fire, and we'll see you next time.
If you want to support the show, head over to cannibalvideo.com, pick up some merch.
And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's something.
Whatever.
Fuck these motherfuckers.
Hello, internets. I just love watching Just Daggers. If you've enjoyed this video as much as I have, click that subscribe button. Peace out, homies.